Nikkei Asia News Roundup
with Jada and Brian. Welcome to the Nikkei Asia News Roundup with your hosts, Jada and Brian.
Bringing you the latest updates and insights on the dynamic world of Asia and more.
Now let's delve into the headlines. This program is brought to you by Nikkei.
Indonesia is stepping up efforts to adopt locally manufactured trains for rail services, with the country's sovereign wealth fund throwing its weight behind the shift for major implications for Japanese suppliers.
India is seeing a rise in new unicorns again after several slow years, as startups leveraging AI and other digital technologies give the country the momentum to challenge the U.S. and China.
South Korea, the world's number 2 shipbuilder, is closing the gap with leader China as U.S. restrictions on Chinese-made ships cut into the country's orders last year, allowing HD Korea Shipbuilding and Offshore Engineering and others to collect the spillover.
The Chinese government on Tuesday imposed export controls on 40 Japanese companies and other institutions with immediate effect, escalating trade tensions between the two neighboring countries.
Japan's antitrust authority raided the offices of Microsoft Japan on Wednesday as part of an investigation into whether the U.S. software giant was improperly hindering customers of its Azure platform from using other cloud services, according to sources familiar with the matter.
Thai retail conglomerate Central Group is investing 7 billion baht, or $225 million, to expand its flagship shopping mall on Phuket, as it expects more tourists and wealthy residents to make their way to the tropical island. Now moving on to the next segment.
Japan's nuclear power revival triggers Fukushima foreboding. The Kashiwazaki-Kariwa Power Complex is the world's biggest nuclear plant, and it is preparing to restart commercial operations for the first time in 14 years. The plant, some 220 kilometers northwest of Tokyo, has not produced a single watt of power since 2012, when the 7-reactor complex was shut down as part of Japan's nationwide closure of reactors following the catastrophic Fukushima disaster a year earlier that shattered the fossil fuel-poor country's extensive nuclear program. The restart has not been met with full support, even locally, where it will bring jobs and money, with the divide symbolizing Japan's enduring ambivalence toward nuclear power. Supplying power primarily to the estimated 43 million people residing in the Kanto region, which includes Tokyo, the Kashiwazaki-Kariwa plant formed a critical part of a nuclear program that stretched to 54 aging reactors immediately prior to the Fukushima disaster, accounting for more than 25% of the country's power generation. Nuclear's contribution to the power mix dropped to 0 in fiscal 2014 and has not gone above 10% since, despite some reactors restarting. Of the 54 nuclear reactors in Japan, 21 were deemed unfit for operation and have been set for decommissioning. But in the decades since, as the country sucked up soaring bills for imports of coal, oil, and gas to keep businesses and households running, exacerbated by the yen's historic weakness versus the dollar, policy has turned 180 degrees.
Figure skater Alyssa Liu's father on Olympic gold in what money can't buy. Years before Chinese-American figure skater Alyssa Liu jumped and twirled her way to a gold medal for the U.S. at the just-concluded Milano-Cortina Winter Olympics, her father says Chinese officials put out feelers about having his prodigy daughter compete under their flag. For Arthur Junguo Liu, it was out of the question. Chinese people still have no freedom of speech, no freedom of religion, and there are still political prisoners in China, he told Nikkei Asia in an online interview. Clearly, I wouldn't allow my daughter to compete for such a government. Arthur had fled China in 1989 after being a leading figure in the pro-democracy movement, suppressed by the Tiananmen Square crackdown on students and citizens on June 4th of that year. He is still considered a fugitive in his homeland. Nevertheless, he said he was approached before the 2022 Beijing Winter Olympics, when China was on a global drive to recruit talent with Chinese ancestry. Declining to go into detail, he said, "I want to say that there was contact, and I made it very clear that I would not allow her to compete on behalf of China." While he said that no specific financial offer was made, as the conversation didn't even go that far, he recalled hearing from others that the financial package would be very enticing.
And now for news highlights. Today we are sharing a couple of Nikkei Asia's most well-read stories in the last few days.
So we have a lot of China and Japan stories, maybe unsurprisingly, because there's been sort of major developments in the recent Japan-China spat, which originated from, do you want to kind of, set the background, Brian, on why this has...
Are we talking about the Prime Minister's comments?
Yeah.
So back in November, there was comments made by the Prime Minister of Japan. She was just in office for a couple of weeks at this point, talking about what would happen if there was a Taiwan contingency, to put it lightly. And the response was basically, we would back Taiwan or help Taiwan. And that's caused a lot of backlash, so to speak, in China. And one of the big backlashes is tourism.
Yes, travel has, so Beijing has sort of encouraged its citizens to not travel to Japan. So we've actually just gotten tourist numbers, right, this month for the month of January. And foreign visitors to Japan fell for the first time in 4 years in January, for the month of January, led by a decline in Chinese travelers. So
Chinese travelers make up a large chunk of international visitors to Japan, right?
Yep. I think the largest.
I think it's you're right. It's the largest single block. And I mean, we've just had China's Lunar New Year holiday in February as well. So, forecasts is that February will also probably be a hard month for Japan. Yeah, we're waiting on those stats to see if the effects are long-lasting.
Yes, and not just travel, which has affected businesses in Japan, like department stores and pharmacies, who have typically sort of benefited from a lot of Chinese tourists buying products, but there's also been developments in the political scene as well. And one story that was read very well, it's sort of an investigative piece. The headline, I'm just going to read it out. Formations of thousands of Chinese fishing boats stir worries in Japan. So this was sort of a Nikkei data analysis.
Yeah, this was data crunched by Nikkei of it's like maritime signals from boats that send out these, because every boat has to have a transponder, such things. It's a visually striking article because it's hard to describe in audio format, but the main photo, it's talking about how the formations are going right up to the exclusive economic zone lines. And just from the dots that represent different boats, you can clearly see where the line is.
Yeah, it says that as many as 2,000 Chinese fishing boats have gathered near that sort of exclusive economic zone in the East China Sea. So, that's a lot. There's also a video in the story, so I encourage your listeners to go see that because it'll probably be visually easier to understand.
So the question is what's going on here, because this isn't just normal fishing activity. China has done this before in years past, but it's doing it right now. And there's some speculation this is what's called gray zone operations. Where they're not military, but they're sending a message of some form. And the question is, what is the message?
I see. And again, China has also imposed export controls on a lot of things, like including rare earths, and now it's imposed export controls on 40 Japanese companies. A lot of them defense and like Mitsui, Mitsubishi, Kawasaki, IHI. So a lot of those companies are rushing to figure out, what the effects could be or potential impacts. But do you want to move over to Southeast Asia? We have a couple of stories from that region as well.
We're done with the touristy thing. There was one story that did surprisingly well, and it's just about how railways in Japan are helping tourists not carry around their luggage on their last day of travel.
Oh, I hear that's sort of really a hassle for because Japan has a lot of stairs, right?
A lot of stairs, and there isn't many dedicated luggage departments on trains as well. That's been a complaint I've heard from people, is suitcases taking up too much space. So the rail companies are saying, hey, we'll send them to the airport. In the morning, you can spend your last day in Tokyo enjoying the place. And there's a fee involved, but
I'm sure the price, where the price point is I guess the key, but I mean...
But it makes a lot more sense than tugging around a suitcase or a big bag.
Yes, yeah.
When you want to just be in a very walkable city. But on a more serious note, as you said, let's go down to Southeast Asia for one of our stories that made the list. We're wondering what's been happening with former Philippine President Rodrigo Duterte.
He's famous for sort of the war on drugs.
The war on drugs. He's been out of the presidency of the Philippines for a couple of years now. And about a year ago, it's almost exactly a year ago, he was arrested and taken to The Hague for war crimes, or I don't know the exact legal definition.
That's sort of where the criminal court is, right?
Yes, the International Criminal Court. And he's there on trial for crimes involving extrajudicial killings and other such things. And the opening arguments for the prosecution began this week. And I think they're still going on, or just about to wrap up. And they're making some pretty strong arguments that you shouldn't be doing this, and there needs to be some kind of justice or punishment. And of course, the defense was going to have its time to defend the operation, saying they were necessary and there was a safety problem. So it's going to be curious to see how this unfolds in the next few weeks.
Yeah, I saw that Duterte's lawyer sort of dismissed all the allegations, which have been supported by victims, but he's saying, how Duterte won 7 elections in 20 years, and he implemented anti-poverty policies. So, yeah.
The ends justify the means, or is it a violation of the law?
Yeah.
We'll see.
And that brings us to the close of today's episode.
We look forward to having you join up again for the next edition of the Nikkei Asia News Roundup.
Stay informed, stay curious. Until next time, I'm Jada.
And I'm Brian. See you again, and take care. This program is brought to you by Nikkei.